Hello. All right. Hi, everyone. So I'm just going to give another minute just so that we can get some more people in here, because we do have more than who's currently attending and registered for it. If you see me looking to the side, it's because I have locked my dog in here with me, because he tends to bark at the window sometimes in very inopportune times, normally when I'm live. So he's hanging out in here with me today. I don't know if he's very happy about it. All right, so while we're still waiting for some more people, we are going to get started on just explaining the before we get started slide, but also kind of why we're here again for sleep. So before we get started, I do need to read off this slide. So the presentation you are about to view is the intellectual property of the Department of National Defense, and any reproduction or retransmission of the slides contained in this presentation is strictly forbidden. Some of the topics discussed in this webinar may be of a sensitive nature and not appropriate for children, so we do ask for parental discretion. Today we are talking about sleep, so it is not essentially too sensitive of a topic. However, we are going to be talking about adult sleep, so you will kind of need to keep that in mind if you're kind of wanting to learn more about child sleep. We're not really going to be going into that. Please understand that people's stories are theirs alone to tell, and anything that is shared by participants in this webinar, either on camera or in chat, is not to be discussed outside the webinar. That being said, the webinar is being recorded and will be available for viewing later on cafconnection.ca. Though active participation is definitely encouraged, you may simply follow along without using the chat and or the video microphone functions if you prefer. So if you've come to a presentation before with me, you will know I generally don't turn on the mics or camera function for people unless you specifically request it. So if we get to the end and you're asking questions and you'd like to just ask verbally versus writing, then just ask me for your mic and I'll turn it on. The reason we generally don't turn on the mics and everything is because generally a lot of people will kind of forget to turn their mics off, and then there's a lot of sound in the background. Okay. Sorry, he's just getting comfortable in the back. He's trying to figure out his nap spot. Okay, so today is, we're going to be doing the Sleep in You series. So at 4Wing, I'm the health promotion specialist at 4Wing, and we're focusing on sleep for our main campaign. So we started out putting out the Sleep in You series, which is a webinar series, and originally we were just going to have it for 4Wing, and I said, you know what, let's open it up nationally so that everyone can kind of get some out of it. So this is going to the format is essentially about a 30-minute brief, and it's going to go 7 sessions. So you don't have to come to all of them. You can come to whichever ones make your schedule or are of interest to you, but it kind of builds onto each of them. At the end, the 7th session is where we're actually going to really hone in on increasing your sleep hygiene. Today is sleep fundamentals, so we're going to be learning about what sleep is, and then next session, which is actually on Wednesday, we'll be learning about why sleep is important. So what happens if we don't get enough sleep? So the sessions will be run on Mondays and Wednesdays at, well, it depends on what time zone you're in, but 1200 hours Mountain Time. And it will go till about 12:30, so about a half hour. If the only day it's not going to happen is on Victoria Day, so May 18th, there won't be a session because I won't be working, as I hope nobody else is either. So there won't be a session on that one. So that's why it's 7 sessions versus 8. Okay, so before we get started, I do need to ask a quick question on the poll. So I am going to ask you, what's your affiliation with the CAF community? So you'll see that poll is being shared now. So you just need to answer whether you're a serving member, regular or reserve force, a veteran, a family member, a civilian employee, or so DND or CFMWS, or other. You may fit into a couple of different categories. For example, you may be a civilian member and also a veteran, but pick the one that most describes you at this time. Okay, so we have most people have answered. So majority of people here are serving members. So we do have quite a big military population right now. We do have a veteran in here. Of course, we may have some other veterans in some other areas. We have 3 civilian employees and 2 others. All right. So to get us kind of engaged in the chat before I just go in, where are you joining us from? So what area of the country, or if you're joining us from Outcan, where are you coming in from? Got Ottawa, Cold Lake, Halifax, Edmonton, Halifax, Petawawa, Comox, Petawawa, Cold Lake. Got a few people from my wing joining us, which is nice. Ottawa. Okay, perfect. So we have quite a few people joining us from kind of all over. So from different time zones for sure. So good morning or good afternoon, depending on what time zone you are from right now. All right, so moving on. The first part is I'm just going to kind of go over a few sleep definitions, just so you have an idea of what I'm talking about sometimes, or if you see them on websites or in articles, so you have a kind of understanding. There's not a test at the end. You don't need to know these definitions by heart. So when I talk about sleep architecture, essentially that means a cyclical pattern of sleep as it shifts between different sleep stages. And we're going to talk about what a sleep cycle is and what sleep stages are. Sleep efficiency, so essentially is the proportion of sleep in the episode potentially filled by sleep. So the ratio of total sleep time to total in-bed time. So how efficient are you at sleeping? Sleep latency is the duration of time from lights out to the onset of sleep. So when you get into bed, you turn off your lights and you're ready to go to bed, how long does it take from that point to when you actually fall asleep? Sleep patterns is a person's clock hour schedule of bedtime and arise time, as well as nap behavior. So each individual has their own sleep patterns. So what time do you go to bed at night? What time do you generally wake up? And do you nap? And if so, what time do you generally nap and for how long? That's okay, Jacob. Don't worry about that. Sleep quality is one's satisfaction of sleep experience. So that's really subjective to you. So it really includes your sleep initiation. So when did you go to sleep? How did you stay asleep? Like, did you stay asleep the entire night? How much did you sleep? And did you feel refreshed when you woke up in the morning? That time in bed is the time in bed from when you turn off that light to when you turn on the light. And then the total sleep time is the total amount of time in a sleep episode. So at night, how long are you sleeping? Okay. And this is from National Sleep Foundation. They have a sleep dictionary. So dictionary of sleep definitions. So question I'm going to ask you guys is, how much do you sleep on night per average? So again, I'm going to put a little poll here. And it's been shared. So I want you to let me know if you've slept less than 5 hours per night, 5 hours to 6.5, 7 to 9, or more than 9 hours per night. And this is on average. So you may have some days that are a bit different. Okay. So everyone has answered here. So we pretty much between 5 to 9 hours is where people are there. It's nice to see that no one's sleeping less than 5. And we don't have any long sleepers as well. So nobody's sleeping more than 9 hours. Okay, so thinking of that, when we look at how much sleep we actually do need, this is from the National Sleep Foundation, and these are the sleep duration recommendations. So you can see for people in the military, you're going to be fitting between the young adult to the adult range, so the 18 to 64 years. So the majority of us are probably 18 to 64 years here. You're between 7 to 9 hours, which is optimal. Some may need to sleep 6 and up to 10 or up to 11 if you're a young adult, so between ages of 18 to 25. Okay. When you get older, so if you, after you hit the age of 65, you're going to see that decrease slightly to about 7 to 8, potentially 5 to 6 as a max for some people, and then up to 9. Sleep does change over the lifespan. So you can see when we start as a newborn, we need a lot of sleep, and it does decrease as we get older, but it doesn't decrease as much as people, I think, want it to. Adolescents do sleep on average 9 hours per night, and they do prefer to go to bed later and wake up later. So if you have any teenagers at home and you're wondering why they want to stay up so late and why they always stay in bed so late, that's kind of the reason, is they they generally have just a preference for that. Most adults have a pretty consistent, sleep schedule, I'd say. So you have one major episode of sleep per night, which is the 7 to 9 hours, which most people are around the 8-hour mark. You generally go to sleep at a regular time, fall asleep regularly quickly, not as soon as you hit the pillow, because that can be a sign of sleep deprivation, but within 10 to 30 minutes. Very little wakefulness during the night. If you need 6 hours or less, there's the potential that you could be a short sleeper. Same if you need 9 hours or more, potential you could be a long sleeper. However, long and short sleepers are really rare in our population. They only account for less than 10% of our population. So normally when people say, oh, I can sleep on 4 hours, really they actually can't. They're just functioning suboptimally, okay? We cannot train ourselves to be a short sleeper as much as some of us may want to. We view sometimes as sleep kind of getting in the way of other things, and so we cut back on it. But we can't train ourselves to need less sleep. We either are a short sleeper or we're not. And the realistic point is you're probably not a short sleeper. You probably do need the 7 to 9 hours. Lifestyle factors and poor sleep habits can disrupt sleep in otherwise healthy adults. So if you are sleeping in a range that's not quite the 7 to 9 and you're not feeling refreshed, then there's potential that you have some lifestyle factors or some poor sleep habits. Also, if you are a shift worker, there is, of course, unique problems with that because your shift work doesn't necessarily match up to your circadian rhythm. Your body's essentially trying to be awake when it wants to be asleep and vice versa. And we are actually going to have a whole session during the Sleep in You webinar series. I'll be talking about shift work. So if you are a shift worker, tune in for that one for sure. Okay. I'm going to apologize if my voice keeps cracking. Sleep stages. So when we look at the stages of sleep, there's two main areas. So if you look at slow wave sleep, which is your SWS or your non-REM, and then you have your rapid eye movement, which is REM sleep, or paradoxical, but most people will say REM. Okay. When you have your slow wave, you have light SWS or you have deep SWS. So you can see here, which is the EEG or electroencephalography. Can't pronounce it, but EEG. So as your sleep kind of becomes deeper, those brain waves become much larger and with larger amplitudes and slower, right? When you look at your REM sleep, you can see you're pretty active. Your brain waves get very active, very similar to when you're either awake or light sleep. If you're asking what an EEG is, so if you haven't ever had an EEG, essentially it measures scalp brain electrical activity. So if you've ever seen the pictures of the people with the nodes all over their heads and they're attached to everything, that's an EEG. I've had a couple myself. They're interesting. The sleep deprived EEG is not super fun. I was not happy camper after that one. So they are interesting to do for sure. So when we look further into those sleep stages, you have the non-REM sleep or NREM sleep. So N1, N2, and N3. So N1 is between being awake and falling asleep. That's when your thoughts are going to start wandering. You're going to start becoming a little less aware of the outside world. N2 is the onset of sleep. So this is where your breathing and heart rate are regular. Your body temperature drops. More than half the night is spent in this stage. And it is a relatively light stage of sleep, which you can be easily awaken. N3 is the deepest and most restorative sleep. So this is where your blood pressure drops, your breathing becomes slower, your muscles are going to be more relaxed, energy is going to be restored during this period. Growth hormones are specifically released during this, so it's really important for children and adolescents to get N3 sleep. And it does occur predominantly in the first half of the night during the first 2 sleep cycles. Non-REM sleep does essentially incorporate about 75% of our night. So to kind of keep that in mind, that the bulk of your sleep is in the non-REM portion. When we look at REM sleep, this does first occur approximately 90 minutes after falling asleep, and then recurs approximately every 90 minutes, increasing in length later in the night. It does provide energy to the brain and body and supports daytime performance. This is when your brain is active and dreams occur. So dreams do occur during other stages, but during REM sleep is when your dreams are going to be specifically vivid. So if you're going to remember a dream, it's likely going to be in the REM sleep stage. Your eyes are going to dart back and forth. So if you've ever seen somebody sleeping and their eyelids are closed and you can see their eyes darting back and forth in the back, the potential is they're likely in REM sleep there. And then the body becomes immobile and relaxed as muscles are turned off. So if you've ever had a dream where you had the feeling like you couldn't move, the likelihood is you were dreaming while in REM sleep and you couldn't actually move because your muscles had been turned off. You can expect about 4 to 5 REM episodes per night. And the first episode is really brief. It's about 10 minutes. And as you get later on in the night, it can continue for about an hour. So at the beginning, not so much. And later on in the night, definitely, which is why you may feel like you remember dreams a little closer to when you're waking up than when you started off in bed. Okay, so when we look at sleep cycles, so sleep is divided into a 90-minute cycle of REM and non-REM sleep, and they are repeated about 4 to 6 times per night. So that equals your 7 to 9 hours per night that you want to be sleeping. The time between the onset of sleep and the end of their first REM period defines the first sleep cycle. Following the sleep cycles always start with non-REM sleep and end in REM sleep. Majority of SWS or your slow wave sleep is going to occur in the first third of the night, and the majority of your REM sleep occurs in the last third of the night. When we're looking at how soon we should be falling asleep, a healthy young adult will normally fall asleep within 10 to 20 minutes of getting into bed. If you are literally hitting the pillow and falling asleep right away, that's actually a sign that you are likely sleep deprived, whether that be because you have poor sleep habits or potentially you are suffering from a sleep disorder. So if you're a person that says, oh, I'm fine, the second I get to bed, I'm falling asleep, I don't have a problem, you should probably reevaluate your sleep hygiene. When we look at awakening, so if anybody tracks their sleep on a Fitbit or a Garmin or an Apple Watch or anything, you can see that you do awaken a few times during the night. Healthy sleepers do experience up to 10 short arousals per sleep hour. Your Fitbit's not going to, potentially get all of that, but these are really brief awakenings that you likely are not going to remember. The only time that you're going to really remember is if it lasts minutes to, an hour or so. If you get up to use the washroom, those types of things is when you'll remember it. My dog is trying to get outside. Sorry about that. Okay. When we look at a circadian rhythm, so I mentioned what shift work messes with our circadian rhythm, right? So it's a rhythm about 24 hours, and it is under control of the circadian system. So essentially there's a master clock in our body that's located in our brain that controls our circadian system. And then there's a bunch of different clocks that are throughout our entire body in different areas, controlling those different areas. The circadian rhythms direct a wide variety of functions, not just our sleep, but they do synchronize with environmental cues about the actual time of day. So that's why it's important for in the morning, we see light so that our circadian rhythms like, yes, it's morning, we should be awake. And at nighttime, we want to see, of course, darkness. So we can say, oh, yeah, we need to go to sleep now. That's why shift workers also have difficulty because they're trying to be awake when it's dark outside, right? And so your circadian rhythm is going, we should be sleeping. And your work schedule is going, no, we need to be working. So it can be really difficult in that situation. So how do we know we need to sleep? So essentially there is what we called sleep drive or homeostatic pressure that's in our body. Okay, leave. So the need for sleep is dependent on the number of hours we've been awake or asleep. So essentially, once your body has been awake for long enough, that homeostatic pressure is going to build and you're going to need to sleep. So if you think about it as an hourglass, so right now you see the hourglass on the slide there, your hours of awakeness is kind of going down, right? So when all that sand goes to the bottom, there's homeostatic pressure that needs to flip that. So you need to now flip your hourglass and sleep so that your waking reservoir can be filled up again. And then it can flip again. You can be awake for a day until it empties. You need to sleep and you flip again. So that's essentially an easy way to kind of think of it. When we do sleep enough, we're going to have pressure to wake up, right? So that's why in the morning, you're going to want to wake up. Some of us maybe more morning people than others. But generally, when we've had enough sleep, our body's like, okay, now we can wake up. Chronotype is a fancy way to say essentially whether we like the morning or the evening. So you've probably all heard, you're an early bird, you're a night owl. Who here, anybody here in morning birds or early birds? Can say yes in the chat. early bird. We got a no thank you. Okay. Okay. And is anybody a night owl? Okay. Got a few night owls. We got a few spouses that are night owls. Yeah. Okay, so most research generally breaks chronotypes into your early bird, your morning type, your evening type, which is your night owl, or neither. You can actually be neither. I would say for me personally, I used to definitely be a night owl. I'm kind of neither now because I like going to bed, but I also really don't like the morning. So I'm kind of in the neither zone. Yeah, we have somebody saying, I just like sleep. Same, I like sleep too. You know, when you have a comfortable bed, why not, right? And somebody also mentioned that their wife was a night owl, right? So if your spouse or your bed partner is a different chronotype than you, it can actually be a little interesting because you may want to go to bed and they're awake, and you may want to wake up and get starting to go in the day, and they're needing to sleep because they stayed up. So it can be really difficult in that situation as well. I know for myself, I'm kind of neither, so I can fluctuate a bit. Versus my spouse is a night owl for sure, right? So sometimes that can be a little strange because I'm going, oh, I want to go to bed, and he doesn't, right? So if that's your situation, then having those conversations about what your preferences are and kind of how to maybe work with that. Okay. And so the question often comes up is, what about napping? So anybody in here like napping? So we have some very emphatic yeses. We've got a couple no's. We've got people saying other people in the family did. Okay, yeah. So napping, it really depends on the person. Some people love napping. Other people, nope, they don't like it at all. And others will only nap under certain circumstances. So for me, I generally only nap when I know I'm really, really fatigued or I'm sick. And my body feels like it needs some extra sleep. I generally avoid napping. If you have no difficulty falling asleep or staying asleep at night, then you can nap. However, if that describes you, so if you're a person that has difficulty going to sleep and or you have difficulty staying asleep, then napping is probably not something that you should be doing. Because essentially, when you nap during the day, it's going to take away from that sleep episode during the night. And as adults, our sleep episodes should be at night versus when you have, a newborn or toddler age, they nap during the day because they're trying to get all of their sleep within a 24-hour period. The optimal duration for a nap is approximately 20 minutes. 20 minutes is enough for us to wake up, feel refreshed, and kind of be able to get on the go. If you need to sleep for longer than that, so if after 20 minutes you're still fatigued, you're unable to function well, then you need to sleep for a full sleep cycle. Remember, our sleep cycle is 90 minutes, so that means your nap should be an hour and a half. What happens is if you're napping and waking up between that 30 minutes to before the hour and a half, you're going to wake up groggy. So that can be really difficult because you're not going to, if you're home, you're definitely not going to want to do anything at home. And if you're, napping before work, or if you, let's say, you have a lunch break and you go for an hour nap, you may wake up and be really groggy and not be able to function well at work either. If you're driving and you're tired, then pull over, have a 20-minute nap. It should be enough to get you alert. However, if yet again you're waking up and you're still really exhausted, then you need to take yourself off of the road until you can become more rested, okay? So just finishing up here by just looking at our views on sleep to just have an idea as to why sleep is really important. A third of Canadians sleep fewer hours per night than is recommended. And they actually found when they did an objective sleep analysis on the CAF that men in particular sleep less than is the minimum. So we find that pulling an all-nighter or voluntary cutting back on sleep is often viewed as benign. We think that there's no harm to it. And because we want to be more productive during the day, we feel like if we cut back on our sleep, we can be more productive. And so it's a solution to our problems. The only issue, we might be a little tired the next day. Yeah, Michael's mentioning North Bay is using sleep pods for shift workers. So I actually just watched their webinar a little earlier today, which was a fantastic webinar. So I'm not sure if anybody else got to catch that. So they're using sleep pods for shift workers because shift workers are, they are working really long shifts, sometimes during the night, and can be really sleep deprived, right? So napping can definitely help with that alertness factor. When we think about this information that you see on the slide is for Canadians in general, but the military itself often thinks that, and military members often think that, sleeping less is kind of a show of strength, right? So if you're able to sleep, be awake for 17 hours or 19 hours, then you're amazing. But actually, if you're awake for 17 to 19 hours, your drowsiness level is essentially equivalent to a blood alcohol content of 0.05%. Okay, if you're awake for 24 hours, your blood alcohol content your drowsiness level is equivalent to a BAC of 0.1%. The legal driving limit that you would get, pulled over and definitely, the law would be against you is 0.08. Okay, 0.05 you can still get. Depending on your province, you can still definitely be breaking some laws or have your license taken away or your car suspended for a bit, depending, of course, the province laws and jurisdiction. So just think of that if you're staying awake for so long, you're kind of becoming the equivalent of drinking alcohol, right? So we really shouldn't look at it as a sign of, oh, I'm amazing, I'm super strong, I can do this, more as how much harm are we doing to ourselves that we're keeping ourselves awake for so long for what gain, right? So we need to do those pros and cons, the harms that we're accumulating because we're staying awake versus what are we actually gaining from staying awake that long. And the next session that is going to be happening on Wednesday is actually going to be looking into the harms that happen when we are sleep deprived. So essentially when we're doing exactly what a third of Canadians are doing and probably a lot of military members are doing and saying, I can sleep less, that's fine, right? Okay. So this is essentially the last slide for today, other than the resources slide, which I'm just going to put on here, which is what we put on every single national webinar that we put. So it's the CAF Assistance Program, Canada Suicide Hotline, information on COVID-19, family information line, the Sexual Misconduct Response Center, Kids Help Phone, and the ARC line in support of COVID-19. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to open this up to any questions that you have specifically. If you if you are interested in coming to my next session, it is on Wednesday at the exact same time, and it's essentially titled "Why Poor Sleep Can Be a Nightmare." I can actually grab the link for you to register for that while I wait for if there's any questions here. And if you want to ask a question verbally, just let me know if you want to turn on your mic. If you don't have a question, that's perfectly fine as well. Okay, so that is the link for the next one. I'm just going to go over the next sessions just so you have an idea, because if you're from somewhere else other than Cold Lake and you're not following our Facebook event, you're not going to see all of the ones that are coming up. So this Wednesday will be why poor sleep can become a nightmare. So essentially looking at the harms of sleep deprivation. Next week on Monday, we're going to be looking at sleep disorders. On that Wednesday, the May 13th, we're going to be looking at alcohol and sleep specifically. May 20th will be nutrition, physical activity, and sleep. May 25th will be your shift work and sleep. So if you're a shift worker, definitely check in that. And then May 27th will be our last session. We'll be talking about keep calm and sleep on, so sleep hygiene. Okay. And if there are no other questions, I do thank you for joining us today. As I said, about a half-hour briefing here, so sweet and short. So if you are in Cold Lake, definitely time to go have some lunch and have a wonderful rest of your day.